13 races, including the Grade 2 Wood Memorial. Let's cap the card at Aqueduct for Wood Memorial Day. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, here with another episode of Capping the Card, where I go through race 1 through 13 and give you my top pick and top value play for all of the races taking place on Wood Memorial Day on Saturday at Aqueduct. Now, before we get to that, want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos are dropping on the channel. We have full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, race previews, weekly programs around the Derby and Oaks, and so much more. So press that like and subscribe button today. Well, like I said, welcome. It is a huge weekend of racing, although some of it's gotten pushed out because of bad weather at Keeneland. Those Friday and Saturday cards are now moved to Monday and Tuesday, but still big day Saturday between here, racing at Aqueduct, 13 races highlighted by the Grade 2 Wood Memorial, the 100th running of the Wood Memorial. Always great to go back and see some of those wonderful former winners of this race, whether you're talking about Easy Goer, Seattle Slew, Nashua, Bold Ruler, Fusaichi Pegasus. A lot of great horses have won this race. And we also have racing out on the West Coast, obviously with the Santa Anita Derby and the Santa Anita Oaks on Saturday as well. So, like I said, the premise of capping the card, pretty straightforward. I'm going to go through race 1 through 13. I'm going to give you my top pick. I'm going to give you my top value play. Value play is in some instances a horse, I should say, that is going to be able to outrun their odds, maybe just finish second or third at a big price. Other times, I think it's a horse that's got a legitimate upset chance in the race that you should be including in your horizontal wagers, like a pick 4 and a pick 5, and I'll try to call that out as I see it. But listen, enough of me yapping. Let's get into it and talk about this 13 race card, and we're going to kick things off. And you know, it's funny. Two things before we get started. One, this is a very Aqueduct-esque card. In other words, you have maiden claimers all the way up to graded stakes runners in this card together. So it really is the full spectrum of the Aqueduct experience. Maiden claimers, 16K claimers, and then Bob Baffert, Todd Pletcher, Chad Brown, Bill Mott with graded stakes runners in the big races. So it's a little bit of everything for you. The other thing we should mention is there is going to be some rain in the forecast Friday, and Saturday is looking maybe a little bit better. Yes, there's rain in the forecast throughout the day, but it's a little bit more of a light drizzle, only looking at maybe 1/10 of an inch of rain actually in terms of accumulation on Saturday. I don't know what that means necessarily for the track. I wouldn't expect it to be like a sloppy, muddy mess. It may very well be sealed, but I don't expect it to be just one of those days where it's just standing pools of water sort of a thing. I think there's a chance that it's even a harrowed track that may be rated as good or something like that. So maybe a little bit of moisture in the track, something to certainly pay attention to, as we handicap. I try to call that out in a couple of instances, but the good thing is a lot of these horses have raced at Aqueduct and they have form over a wet track. So you kind of know what you're getting into in case the conditions come up one way or the other. Well, like I said, let's dive into this 13 race card and kick things off with the $20,000 maiden claimer going 6.5 furlongs. And this one is for 3-year-old and up. And my top choice is right on the inside rail, and that is the number 1 Flying Frisbee, 9-2 in the morning line for Rachel Keithan, Christopher Elliott up on the mount. And this is a horse second back from a pretty significant layoff. Had not run from December 2023 till March 2025. So a period of 15 months, basically. A Nebraska bred, sired by Maximus Mischief, though, and a horse that, again, long layoff, then switches barns, goes to Keithan's barn, and was running last time out in a $40,000 maiden optional claimer, and did exactly what you would expect a horse to do under those conditions. Faded late, but showed good early speed, which I think is promising. That this horse, coming off this long of a layoff, still showed that burst, still showed that initial speed. I think that's promising for the second race back. Now they're dropping this horse a little bit more in class, maiden claiming 20, from that maiden optional claiming 40. So I think the combination of a drop in class, I think you're also getting a little bit of better conditioning, second back from that long layoff, and not for nothing, you have Christopher Elliott who's getting a 5-pound weight allowance. So this horse is carrying a little bit less weight, should have better conditioning, dropping down in class. The 47 buyer speed figure the horse earned last time out, honestly, is right there with anybody else in the field. So 9-2, I feel like a very honest price on that number one. And honestly, in these maiden claimers, I also try to avoid horses that have just had a lot of bites at the apple. I like to try to find horses that have had fewer chances and might be, willing and still might have room for improvement. And certainly Flying Frisbee fits that bill. Another horse that fits that bill is my value play in this race. The number 8, Change Your Name, 10-1 for Joseph Lee with Romero Mirage aboard. And the thing about this one is I think you finally found out what this horse probably is going to be best at doing, which is sprinting last time out. But this one, interestingly enough, bred by trainer Ben Colebrook down in Kentucky, sired by Blame out of a Looking at Lucky mare. And this one debuted on the turf, was going long. And then, things kind of went wrong that last race, going a mile at Belmont at the Aqueduct meet in the fall. The horse went to the bench for basically the next 4.5 months, came back in February and ran a perfectly fine race. Again, the type of race you would expect, showed a little bit of speed, faded late, now second back from this layoff, has the foundation of going longer. So I'm not really worried about the distance. I just think, Romero stays up on this horse. He's somebody who rides well. I like the sort of rides that Romero gives up here. So Change Your Name at 10-1. Again, 48 buyer speed figure last time out at this level. He could take another step forward. And if he does, he's certainly right there. And I think 10-1 is a very fair price on a horse that, again, should show you a slightly better effort, second back from the layoff. And I think just the cut back to 6.5 furlongs is what this horse probably is best at. Has been able to show speed in the past, and I think is going to be able to do it again. Draws a little further outside, so I think that really helps Romero get a sense of the pace dynamics early in this race. But Change Your Name at 10-1. Good value play, in my opinion, both up top and underneath in that first race. Let's head to race number 2 on the card, a $62,000 optional claimer for 4-year-olds and up, going 7 furlongs. And this one, I'm not going to overthink it too much. This one, if you're playing the early pick 5, is probably going to be a horse a lot of people single, and that's number 6, General Partner for trainer Chad Brown, owned by Claravich Stables. And quite frankly, this horse just has a lot of back class. This is a horse that finished second in the Champagne to Timberlake, ran in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and finished 6th that day to Fierceness and Muth and Locked, and then came back off of a long layoff and ran a first-level allowance race and just absolutely dominated that field, which had a couple of nice horses. Black Rain, Assume Nothing. There were some nice horses in that race, earned a 101 buyer speed figure in that effort. And here's the thing, that was coming off of a 8-month layoff. Well, he's coming off another 8 or 9 month layoff now. So this horse can run well off the bench. That's not an issue. Now you're going to see it again. I just think he really towers over this field. He showed the ability that he can sit off the pace a little bit. And that last time out, it feels like Chad Brown's really starting to unveil his horses that he's going to be having later this year. I don't think this is the final ending point for General Partner, who's clearly a stakes caliber horse and is going to end up in stakes caliber competition. This is a first step in that comeback trail, but he's been training very, very well down at Pace and Place for Chad. Manny Franco back up on the mount, rode this horse to victory at a maiden breaker at 7 furlongs. I just think this one's really tough to get around in this particular spot. So that's going to be my top pick in this race. In terms of the value play, listen, if you're going to try to beat the horse, I understand you probably want to use a horse like Victory Way, number 3 for Bill Mott. That horse, a good horse who has kind of struggled at this level a little bit, not necessarily come through burn money the last couple of times out, finishing 8th and 4th when the post-time favorite. So some questions there for sure. I don't know how much better this horse is going to get. The horse kind of ran really well coming back from a very long layoff, but ultimately ended up, then leveling off the next 2 times out. So I just don't know what we're going to get out of Victory Way. Therefore, Toxic Gray is a horse that I'm really interested in for Michael Maselli. Dylan Davis up. This horse has really good early speed, should be able to strike to the front, probably have General Partner sitting off of that horse. But Dylan takes over the mount. And again, when Dylan's aggressive, good things happen. This horse has been training very, very well and has been running very well. Finished second to Crazy Mason last time out. Crazy Mason, of course, is in a stakes race later on in the day. But the third place horse that day spun and won, came back to win next time out. So This horse has faced a lot of nice runners. Ridgewood runner, King Angelo, Maximus Meridius, who's also in a stakes race later today, El Grande O, who we've seen on the stakes races. So this one's kept very, very good company, has legitimately great early speed, 9-2. Again, if you're going to try to beat General Partner, I would start with Toxic Gray. If you're just trying to make a very simple exacta wager, just Toxic, a General Partner over Toxic Gray, you could go that way too. But I think Toxic Gray at 9-2 presents the best value potentially in this race. Well, let's go to race number 3 on the card, which is a $30,000 maiden claimer going 6.5. And this is for New York breds that are 3-year-olds and up. And in this race, I'm going to go to the number 9. I can see that. This horse coming off of a significant layoff and is taking a little bit of a class drop for Bruce Levin. Romero Mirage up on the mount, 5-1 on the morning line. This horse does come from off the pace a little bit, but here's what gives me confidence. This horse debuted in March of 2023 and ran pretty well that day at Aqueduct in a state-bred $40,000 maiden claimer. Came from off the pace to finish 3rd. Then went to the bench for about a year. Came back in late March 2024. Ran against Open Company, $45,000 claimer Laurel. Same thing. Came from off the pace, closed to finish 2nd. Now is coming back from, again, about a little over a year layoff and is running a little bit of a lesser class, now maiden claiming 30s. I just think at 5-1, this horse has shown the ability to run at least decently off the layoff. For Flying P Stables, that's a stable that we all know has got very, very hot over the summer at Saratoga, and certainly their runners can kind of strike from anywhere. This horse's Beyer speed figures of a 51 and 53, they stack up better than most anybody else in the race. So this horse can absolutely get the job done. Question is the trip. Coming from off the pace can always be a little bit tricky in these maiden claiming races, but there's a couple of horses that should have good early speed, like a Magic Beach, even like a Total Silence on the outside might show a little bit more. Certainly Man from Malta is going to show a lot of speed at 8-1. And speaking of Man from Malta, that's actually my value play, because in case this does end up being kind of a gate to wire type of an effort, this is a horse coming back from a little bit of a layoff for Amira Chikalki, Kyber Koa up on the mount, and is getting back to running against state breds. Ran against Open Company last time out. I think you look at that race back in mid-January, that's really that's the MO. That's the race this horse needs to replicate. Because at what time the horse only faded to 3rd and ran a 49 Beyer speed figure. I think if that horse can run back to something similar to that race, coming off of a little bit of a layoff, I think is very promising here. And horse has been training nicely leading up to this race. Plenty of works leading up to this one to suggest nice foundation. The 36-2, 3 furlong work leading up to this one still shows this horse has a lot of initial burst. So Man from Malta, I think at 8-1 is a little bit of an interesting value play in a race where, I'm not running to bet any of these horses. A horse like Magic Beach, okay, for Linda, finished 2nd last time out, but again, now has had 7 bites at the apple. Certainly, the first time starter, good question. A little bit interesting, but Bruce Brown is not known for getting horses ready first time out. Jeremiah Englehart's horse, while he's very good at this level, I just not really quite sure what to think of this one coming off a little bit of a layoff and switching barns. 9-4, understandable if people want to include this horse in their wagers. The horse has a race to run back to, going back to that February race, which would probably be good enough to win in this spot. But it seems like the horse has taken a couple of steps back lately. So again, I just think I can see that at 5-1. Would not shock me at all if that horse came from off the pace to get the win. And if you think it's going to be a little bit more of a speed favoring track, Man from Malta could get the job done up front. Let's go to race number 4, which is a $10,000 claimer for 4-year-olds and up, going a mile on the dirt. And listen, how can you not bet on a horse named Best Bet? In all honesty, this is about me fading Valentin Day more than anything else. Valentin Day is 2-1 for Linda Rice and has burned money the last 3 times out, where the horse was running against 10K claimers, 16K claimers, and 15K optional claimers, going a mile and an eighth, and a mile and a quarter, and has A, gotten progressively worse, and B, has just burned more and more money. So, yes, the cut back to a mile is going to be beneficial. The horse, I don't think, clearly wanted to do a mile and a quarter, but I just am not going to take a short price on Valentin Day. As a result, I'm going to go with a horse getting blinkers on who's already got outstanding speed for Gustavo Rodriguez and Jaime Torres, and that is or Jaime Gomez, I should say, and that is the 9-2 choice Best Bet. This one is dropping down in class from running against claiming 20, now going down to claiming 10. I already mentioned getting the equipment change. I think this horse, you go back to the race, maybe that claiming 35 race back in May. That was a pretty nice effort. This horse is now also second back from a little bit of a layoff. So I think that's something else to keep in mind, that you're probably going to see this horse's best effort today rather than what you might have seen a few races back. The other thing is this horse has handled a wet track before, has a win over a muddy track going back to that effort in May. Admittedly, did not deal with a sloppy sealed track particularly well, though I wonder if something else might have gone amiss in that race. But this is a horse, again, outstanding early speed, and has been racing, quite frankly, against tougher competition, not just the claiming 20, but previous two races before that was running against starter allowance 50 competition. So this is the lowest level this horse has run against, and I just think has a little bit of a class and speed advantage in this spot. 9-2 feels like a very honest price on this horse. Now, in terms of a value play, we're going to go a little further outside Allure of Money. For Carlos Figueroa Jr. and Lane Luzzy at 6-1 on the morning line. This horse also has very good early speed. 3 for 6 winning at this distance, which I think is notable. Always does well against these kind of state-bred races, but won a claiming 10,000 race 2 back against open company. So clearly has some ability at this level. The speed figures have been very consistent, even if that last time out the horse weakened a little bit late. I like that this one has been kept fresh by Figueroa leading up to this race. And I just think this one, again, you look at those last few efforts, certainly very competitive and has shown the ability to win at this level, at this condition level, and at this distance. So certainly checks a lot of boxes. Also, sired by Central Banker. Why is that a big deal? Folks, if it's going to be an off track, you always bet Central Bankers. They always run well over an off track. And indeed, this one's 2 of the 4 career efforts over a wet track were victories. So clearly can handle this sort of a distance and can handle these sorts of conditions. So all of Allure of Money at 6-1, I thought a little bit of an interesting value play there in race number 4. And like I said, try to beat a couple of horses like Valentin Day and like Empty 2. Let's head to race number 5 on the card, which is a maiden special weight race. 74,000 for 3-year-old New York breds. And this one, we're just going straight to the DePaz barn. That's where we're going in this race. And that is the number 10 Palace Boss and the number 1 Dr. Barry. Listen, it's a spready race. This is one where I certainly would understand wanting to spread a few different directions. I'm going to be playing against a horse like Too Honest Mischief, who's stepping up from maiden optional claimer to maiden special weight competition for Chris Englehart. I know he's good with these types. Second back from a layoff, but still 3-1 playing against that one. Dear Chairman, I certainly would get that horse. That would make some sense potentially for Juan Carlos Guerrero with Christopher Elliott up at 4-1. Tap It Easy coming off a little bit of a layoff. Blinkers are coming off. Again, that horse has a race 2 back in November that certainly would be good enough to potentially win here. But Palace Boss, another horse stepping up from that maiden optional claiming company and really felt like more of a race just to keep the horse active than anything else. The horse ran really well back in February at this level, finished 3rd with Katie Davis aboard. And then last time out, horse that did have some trouble at the start, didn't get off to the best beginning. That's going to be the key with this one. I actually like the outside post position because I think this horse, when he avoids trouble and can get in a relatively forward position, you're going to see this horse put its best foot forward. When this horse ends up behind other horses, doesn't do a lot of running. And so I think the key is the break here. And if Katie can get this horse sitting 2nd or 3rd early in the race, I think that's where you're going to see this horse's best opportunities lie. Certainly, if this horse is able to run back to those 67, 71 buyer speed figure efforts from this spring, from last spring in 2024, certainly would be able to be more than competitive in this spot. Now, my value play of Dr. Barry, this is just a horse I really like. Maybe this is a horse I got to give up on after this race, but I think at 8-1 is a horse that certainly presents good value underneath in this race. Luis Rivera Jr. takes over on the mount, or stays up on the mount, I should say. This horse debuted at Finger Lakes, and those first 2 races might not have gotten big speed figures at all, but they were visually impressive races to watch because this is a horse that broke dead last and just gave himself way too much to do and would come flying late, whether it was one turn or two turns, whether it was over a sloppy track or a fast track. That's notable. This horse can handle those types of conditions. Then goes to the bench from November to March and pops back up in Horacio De Paz's barn, as this was in Michael Ferrero's barn when running at Finger Lakes. And this horse now runs for, at this level, state-bred competition, running against much better horses, and finishes third that day. But same sort of thing, kind of dropped back a little bit early, but not as bad as he did at Finger Lakes. Was able to make a little bit of a run past some other horses late. I just think Dr. Barry, as an underneath play as a horse, you know what's going to happen. The horse is going to come running late. I think a mile's a good distance. I think second back from the layoff is a good angle. Second time in the DePaz barn. There's just a lot of things I like here to see. And I think this one, again, this makes a lot of sense as an underneath play. I think those speed figures might be a little light, but I think you could see a big step forward for Dr. Barry in this race, because if he gets a little bit of pace to run at, this is a horse that could absolutely come running late and run up into something. So I think at 8-1, you're getting a little bit of an honest value. But again, a pretty wide open race there. I'm going to try to get past the favorite and maybe one or two of the other top choices, but certainly would not blame anyone for using a horse like Tap It Easy or Dear Chairman in their tickets. Well, let's go to race number 6 on the card, which is a $16,000 maiden claimer for 3-year-old and up, going a mile. Interesting race, because I want to try to beat Prove Worthy, and I want to try to beat Todd's horse in this race, Quiet Wisdom. Quiet Wisdom is taking a massive class drop off a layoff. And admittedly, Todd and Rapoli are pretty good in those spots. I think winning about 28% when dropping a horse in for the tag for the first time over the last 5 years, when Pletcher drops a Rapoli horse in. And this is a Rapoli and St. Elias Stables horse. So blinkers are coming on. We're dropping in class from running against state bred 45 competition and even state bred $80,000 competition, where the horse won last April at that level. But clearly, this horse has damaged goods to some extent, because you don't have this horse come back in a 16K claimer off the bench if you feel like this horse still has some good races in him. Clearly, they feel like it's time to cut bait on this horse, and they're comfortable losing this one and taking a massive class drop on Quiet Wisdom at 5-2. I don't necessarily want to be a part of that, because I don't know if that means the horse is just no good and just best days are behind it, or whether maybe the horse wins by 10 lengths because he's just got the class edge on everyone. But I'm going to pass. Prove Worthy is another tough one to kind of go with, because this is a horse that, again, burns a lot of money. You look the last four of the last 5 times out, this horse has been your morning line favorite and post-time favorite, I should say, and has lost every single time. So, yes, I know this is the lowest level that this horse has dropped to in terms of a claiming 16, has been running at a claiming 35, claiming 25 before that. But I just, at 2-1, I just can't keep taking a short price on a horse that's going to come running late. Manny Franco does stay aboard, but again, going to try to beat this one. I feel like this is a wide open race. Ultimately, I went to the number 8, Six Kings, 8-1 for trainer Wayne Potts with Dylan Davis up on the mount. This one's coming off a win against N2L competition at this 16K level, and going a mile, coming out of Linda Rice's barn. Wayne Potts, always dangerous first off the claim. This is a former Godolphin-bred horse, Nyquist out of a Bernardini mare, and this is a horse that had a lot of pedigree. Clearly wasn't quite correct, only selling for $65,000, but like I said, was a horse that showed the ability to win last time out, sat a really nice trip, made up ground, passed horses, was able to get the job done. Now is stepping up a little bit in class, going up against kind of slightly different conditions in the 16K claimer, but it was still promising to see the horse win at this purse level last time out, going this distance. So I just feel like this one at 8-1 presents outstanding value in a race where I want to try to beat the favorites. Another horse that presents really good value is my value play, the number 3, Active Duty for Stephen Shower. Stephen Shower might not have a lot of entries in 2025, but he's winning them, that's for sure. 9 entries this year, 5 victories, 56%. How do you like those numbers? This is a horse that was claimed out of the Rob Atras barn, and last time out, just kind of didn't get the right trip, kind of got off a little slow, was chasing most of the time. This horse needs to be a little bit more forward to kind of show that best effort. I think with Romero Mirage, you're going to get that. this horse can run back to that 70 buyer speed figure from 3 back when it got the win against 16,000 N2L competition. Certainly a very serious horse. 12-1, I think you're getting more than a fair price on a hot barn with a jockey who I think knows we got to get this one out a little bit quicker this time as opposed to the last effort. So I just think Active Duty at 12-1 presents some intriguing value in a race where, like I said, I'm going to try to beat these two favorites, Prove Worthy and Quiet Wisdom, because I'm suspicious of Quiet Wisdom in terms of how good that horse is, and Prove Worthy, you got to prove that you're worthy of my bet because you're just burning money left and right these last several races. Let's get into the meat of the card and go to race 7, which is the first of many graded stakes races on the card, and that is the Distaff Stakes. And I'm going to try to beat your morning line favorite, Irish Maxima, even money horse, breaking from the inside rail. I'm always skeptical of speed horses breaking from the inside rail. They have to break exactly right, especially at 7 furlongs. I'm also sometimes skeptical of mid-Atlantic form, that particularly on a favorite like this, where this is a horse that has done a lot of damage at Delaware Park, Laurel, Parks, Mahoning Valley, Parks, Laurel Park. That's great. That's all well and good. Now you come up to New York, and sometimes that form doesn't always travel. The last time this horse came to New York was admittedly over a sloppy track in the Grade 1 Frisette, but finished 5th that day in a 6-horse field and was 15 1/4 lengths back. Clearly, that was way too much of a test. But again, the one time this horse has kind of stepped up outside of the Mid-Atlantic was not great. And then the horse followed up with not a great effort at Churchill Downs and the Fern Creek Stakes as well. And clearly something went wrong because the horse went to the bench for about 9 months after that. So listen, I get there might be some reasons, but even money, I just don't like Irish Maxim in the spot. Who do I like in this spot? Well, I really like the number 5, Socially Selective, for trainer Bill Mott. This one's coming back from a little bit of a layoff, but is firing off some bullets down in South Florida from Mott, who is not a trainer who usually fires off these types of aggressive workouts for horses. I thought ran pretty decently in the Interborough Stakes. You go back 2 back, ran really well to a horse like Mystic Lake in the Sugar Swirl down at Gulfstream Park. This horse has some nice races to run back to, certainly. And that 95 buyer speed figure 2 back certainly looms large. And that was off of a pretty significant layoff. Hadn't run from February until December. So the fact that this horse can fire off the bench, has already shown the ability to do that, run a big race off the bench, I think is even more promising. This horse has done it regularly. You look, this horse won in debut, then went to the bench from August until March, came back in March and ran a really good second on the Purple Martin Stakes. Then goes to the bench from April 23 till January 24 and comes back and wins first race back off the bench against Optional Claiming Company. So this horse just runs well off the bench, quite frankly. And I think Socially Selective at 7-2 makes a lot of sense as a top pick. My value play is another Mid-Atlantic horse, but at least you're getting a little bit more of a price here for Brittany Russell. I actually like Manny Franco taking over the mount on this horse. I think Manny's just going to be maybe a little bit more aggressive with this one, not wait to come from off the pace. This is a horse that had been on the turf out in California for Tim Yaktine. Now suddenly gets transferred to Brittany. Brittany changes the horse from turf to dirt, and boom, all of a sudden this horse is a 2-time stakes winner. Going a little bit longer, now you're cutting back to 7 furlongs. I actually like the cutback for this horse who can come from a little off the pace. I think Sea Dancer at 9-2 presents interesting value in this race and is a little bit of an unknown in regards to, I don't know what this horse's upper bound potential is, because this horse ran an 85 the first time on the dirt, a 90 last time on the dirt, could continue to step up. And if this horse does, then now you're looking at a really serious runner. So I think you're just getting decent value at 9-2 on a horse that has upside potential and is taking on a nice jockey in Manny Franco, and for a trainer in Brittany Russell who knows how to move horses forward and who also knows this New York circuit, even though she's based in the Mid-Atlantic. Let's head to race number 8, which is a $76,000 allowance for 4-year-old and up New York breds, going 7 furlongs. This is a tough race. It's a tough race because you could go a few different directions. One of the things I will say, I'm playing against Crimson Light. Number 6 horse for Todd Pletcher with Kendrick Carmouche aboard. This horse had a dazzling debut. This horse was completely left at the starting gate, was 20-plus lengths back early that day, closed, ended up winning that race. Only earned a 57 buyer speed figure, but I think people are going to remember that race and maybe get a little too excited about it and think that that's something that can be replicated off the bench. This horse hasn't run since January of 2024. So it's been a minute. Yes, the horse is trading well for Todd. Yes, Kendrick stays back up on board. But now we're facing winners for the first time and doing so at a short price. No, thank you. St. Gaudens, that's another horse that's been burning a lot of money. You look, the last 4 times out has been your post-time favorite, lost all 4 of them. Hard for me to trust this horse at 7-2. Therefore, where am I going to go in this race? Well, I'm going to go a little further outside to Nunzio, the number 10 horse for Michelle Gianguilo with Jose Lezcano up on the mount. And this is a horse that won in debut and has been running very well and very honestly against N1X allowance competition, finished second a few times against this level of competition, is coming back from, I thought, a really nice effort last time out where the horse was kind of a 9-2 third choice in the race and ended up running second. I thought that was a promising effort. The horse can come from a little off the pace. There should be a little bit of speed in this one, but has the versatility to sit a few different types of trips, can sit closer to the pace if necessary, one tracking the pace so he can pass horses. That's not an issue. But I feel like at Nunzio, out of the shorter priced options at 4-1 kind of made the most sense in this race. But I'll be honest, the horse I really like is the number 4, Leo's Reward, for David Donk. I think this is a pretty good horse. And this horse won at 7 furlongs, 2 back. That's where it broke its maiden. Won over a good racetrack, so won with a little bit of moisture in the dirt, which might be the case again on Saturday. Manny Franco stays aboard. That's notable to me because Manny's been on a few of these horses that are in this race, including the number 3 Trust Fund for Todd Pletcher. The fact that Manny opts to ride Leo's Reward for David Donk over staying on Pletcher's horse, I think is somewhat notable. And Manny, like I said, must see something here. A horse that does show improvement, has been consistent the last 4 times out, 66, 65, 69, 68 in terms of buyer speed figures. So a Trust Fund, a horse I understand why people might gravitate to as a little bit of a price at 8-1 for Pletcher. I get it. I just don't think this horse has recaptured the form it showed back in 2023. This horse came back from a really long layoff and has not quite been the same horse since then. Third back in the form cycle, admittedly could be showing his best form, but the buyer speed figures are just 10, 12 points below what they were before the layoff, and I wonder if we're really going to get back there at any point. Like I said, Manny moving off of this one I thought was notable, but Leo's Reward at 10-1, I think it's at least a little bit of an interesting horse in this spot. But yeah, this one just going to be trying to beat Crimson Light and St. Gaudens, 2 horses that I think might get overbet in this particular spot. Well, now we're going to hit the real doozies, and that's going to be the Grade 3 Gazelle, 100 Kentucky Oaks points on the line, going 1 1/8. There is a notable scratch in this race, which is the number 8, Liam in the Dust, who is likely going to be part of the early pace scenario. But ultimately, I still think Ballerina Doro for trainer Chad Brown, Dylan Davis up, even money favorite. I think she's just the class of the field. I know she's not going to get a ton of pace to run at. I know a horse like Vanilla Sunday might be able to get a loose and alone on the lead, though I do think a horse like Late Night Call from the inside is going to send. Whether or not she's able to actually keep up with her is a whole other question. But Ballerina Doro, you go back and look at that Demoiselle. She was wide that day, and she was closing into a very modest pace. 48 and change, 112 and change, 137 and change. They weren't going fast that day. Remember, Muhima got up front and controlled the pace. And Ballerina Doro came running like heck to close into that pace last time or 2 times back, going the 1 1/8 distance. I think she just likes this distance. Devonadale, I'm willing to put a line through that one a little bit. It was a short field, a 1-turn mile. She had to be a lot closer than she normally is. I think it maybe took her out of her game a little bit. Dylan Davis, interestingly enough, back aboard. Tyler Gaffleone rode her last time out, but Tyler, of course, suffered that broken ankle last week at Gulfstream Park in that paddock incident. So he's off all of his mounts for the next couple of months. But Dylan's got experience with this horse. He rode this horse in the Demoiselle. And I remember him riding past me on the way back from the track. And he was speaking to, I think, one of Chad Brown's assistants. And he goes, man, I thought we were going to get there. And, you know, he really thought this horse had a shot to track down Muhima, who's a very, very nice runner for Brad Cox and is your morning line favorite, by the way, in the Grade 1 Ashland this weekend. So she's just got the class in terms of Ballerina Doro. That's why I have her up top. Now, a horse that I am high on is the number 4 Early On. I like this horse maybe a little bit more than Vanilla Sunday. I say that only because Vanilla Sunday hasn't handled the wet track particularly well. And that big effort last time out came with Lasix. Well, we're losing Lasix. So we'll see how good she is going 2 turns as well. Early on, though, this is one for Safi that, just weird running lines to some extent. Started out in Mark Hennig's barn, running against New York bred competition. Then, was running against maiden optional claiming competition. Then Safi takes the horse down to Florida, and the horse beats Open Maiden Special Weight Company and does it easily. Then steps up last time in the Virginia Oaks and runs, I thought, a great second place finish to Fondly. And I know that number came back pretty slow in terms of a 69 buyer, but man, there was nobody that was catching Fondly that day who was kind of up on the lead by herself. But early on was the horse that was making up all the ground late that day. She really impressed me with that late kick that she had. I think she's a horse that, much like Ballerina Doro, is going to be coming from off the pace, but she might not be quite as far back. Yes, you get a new jockey now, Javi, stepping up for the first time on this one. But I just think this horse going 1.1 1/8 isn't a bad thing with early on. C2 Racing Stables, they tend to run pretty well. And I just think this one at 6-1 presents some intriguing value in this particular race. But certainly you could look at Shug McGahee's horse, Pure Beauty, as another potential threat to Ballerina Doro. Would make plenty of sense if you wanted to go that direction as well. That's a horse that clearly has some expectations. McGahee's horses tend to get better every single time out. This one has improved by leaps and bounds to this point every time out if you just pay attention to speed figures. Let's go from the Gazelle to the Grade 2 Carter. And again, we're going to, balance out playing chalk with trying to beat favorites. And here we're going to try to beat a couple of favorites. We're going to try to beat Quince Brew, who, again, is coming up from Laurel Park and leaving Maryland for the first time. Always skeptical of those types. Like to play against them. And I think that there's a couple of other interesting horses in this race. Full Moon Madness, that horse coming off a win in the Grade 3 Tom Fool certainly makes plenty of sense. Would hardly shock me if Full Moon Madness won this race at 7-2. I like that horse quite a bit. Would be on all my tickets. So, like I said, other good horses in this race. I think a horse like Maximus Meridius, interesting horse, going to be part of the early speed. Did with the toboggan, 2 back. Should handle 7 furlongs okay. Still going to try to beat this one, coming off maybe a little bit of a substandard effort, in my opinion, against Pennsylvania bred Allowance Company, and didn't get the win there as your 1-9 favorite. So that's a little concerning. But ultimately, my top choice went to Donegal Momentum. I remember when this horse debuted, and Maggie Wolfendale, who is Tom Morley's wife, kind of was a little incredulous that this horse was going to take so much money. But this horse, if you remember, had a massive bullet work leading up to that debut effort. And Maggie had always said, this is a horse that's better on the turf. Well, he ran really great on the dirt. And I'll be honest, he ran really well the next time out as well on the dirt, where he finished second to surface to air, but, ran a 93 buyer speed figure. Then switched off Lasix and didn't run particularly well in the Amsterdam. Then goes back on Lasix, but goes on the turf then. And wins a race, then goes off Lasix and wins the Geoponte Stakes, going 2 turns on the turf, goes out to Del Mar and runs a really competitive third to King of Gosford and Formidable Man in the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby in a field of 11. Almost took him gate to wire that day. So clearly a very talented horse in that regard. Then comes back to Fairgrounds, wins again against $80,000 optional claimers. Now you're second back from a little bit of a layoff. We're switching back onto dirt. The horse's last workout was a 47-2 work at Belmont Park, second of 65 that day. I think this one is just a horse that can run on both surfaces. I love the fact that he's gotten more foundation over the last couple of starts on the turf, being able to handle 2 turns, and we're cutting back to 7 furlongs now. That shouldn't be an issue. I just think this horse is sitting on a massive race. If you get anywhere near 8-1, I think it's just outstanding value in this particular spot. Now, Surveillance, my other horse that I want to highlight here, is my value played 8-1 in this race. And this is strictly an underneath play. Why? Because that's what Surveillance does. The last 4 times out, second. Key the horse in second in your exactas. This horse runs really well, runs really honest, just doesn't win. Largely because the horse doesn't really pass other horses. Mostly runs in place. So I think this is one Jose Lezcano is going to get out in a forward position, but might not strike to the lead. And if this horse is just sitting second or third early, he's going to finish second or third late. So I stick at 8-1 is a horse that I would absolutely be including in my vertical wagers just because that level of consistency is there. And he answered a lot of questions last time out, running a big race in that Tom Fool, switching off Lasix and handling the dirt and the conditions really well. This horse also has run off Lasix to win the Troy, but that was obviously a scratch depleted field that was taken off the turf. So something to keep in mind when you're talking about some of those previous starts. But like I said, has run well off Lasix now a couple of times, answered those questions. Just a horse that doesn't seem to like to win, unfortunately. So would key this one in on second at 8-1. Well, let's head to race number 11 on the card, which is the Excelsior Stakes. Going 1.25 miles on the dirt. And, the two biggest names in this race are Batten Down and Crouppy. I like Batten Down a lot. Problem is, Batten Down doesn't know how to pass horses. He's never passed a horse in his life. So he just doesn't know how to. And maybe that's something Mott's figured out. And certainly the horse is training nicely for him down in South Florida. And I trust Bill Mott more than just about anybody else. And this is a horse second back from a little bit of a freshening. So maybe there's something there. But again, a horse just doesn't pass other horses. And there's a lot of other speed in this race. You look at a horse like Film Star has got some significant speed in this race. You look at a horse like Phileas Fogg has got legitimate early speed in this race. So, even a horse like Mama's Gold has got a lot of speed in this race. So the question is, how's Batten Down going to handle all that pace pressure going 1.25 miles? I just don't like it. As a result, now you might say, well, Crouppy is going to come from off the pace. Problem is, Crouppy has just not been the same this year. Crouppy has just not been running particularly well. I know it's been against tough company, but those last couple of efforts have just not inspired a lot of confidence, as he's a far cry from running that 106 second place effort in the Whitney. I just think that he's a horse that I'm going to try to get around in this spot. As a result, I really like Mass Mac for trainer Rick Dutrow Jr. 5-2 on the morning line for trainer like I said, Rick Dutrow Jr. with Manny Franco up on the mount. This one is switching off Lasix, but has run well off Lasix before and is winning 4 of his last 5 now. Really on a roll since switching to Babe Dutrow's barn from Brad Cox's, and is stepping up and running off Lasix for the first time, admittedly. But I just think this horse is going to be able to make that transition pretty easily and is also going to get the perfect trip. Is a horse that has good speed, but not great speed. It's going to be sitting behind the pace and has a huge late kick, a lot of stamina there. The last 2 victories were at 1.1 miles, and was stretching out, winning both of those. I think going 1.25 miles is exactly what this horse wants to do. Mass Mac at 5-2. That's going to be my top value play, or my top pick in the race. My top value play is a curious horse in Classic Catch. I don't know what to make of this horse. Blinkers are coming on. I feel like Todd doesn't even really know what to do with this horse. Has been largely running against $80,000 and $100,000 optional claimers and not winning, mind you. This horse is 3 for 17, and with all those 3 wins coming before August 2023. So hasn't won a lot lately. But the blinkers coming on is an interesting move. This horse could be a little bit more forward. We know the horse can handle the 1.25 miles. He's won at this distance before. He's finished second at this distance the other time. So that's very promising. Only does have 1 victory at Aqueduct, so maybe that's a little bit of a question mark, but 5 for 7 in the exacta. Again, this is a horse that I feel like blinkers on, could take a step forward, has a race good enough to win. I don't know if you're going to get that, but you're going to get a horse I think that runs better than his morning line odds. 15-1, a horse I would absolutely be including underneath my vertical wagers. But also, if you want to take a shot downfield, maybe use this one up top. Go for it. It's not going to be my top pick value play or my top pick, but he is a value play maybe to use underneath, especially at a big price like 15-1. Let's go to the headliner, which is the Wood Memorial, going 1.1 miles for your 3-year-olds. This race has had 2 scratches. One of them not particularly significant, Bear Claw Necklace. The other one quite significant, Hill Road. Hill Road is out of the Wood Memorial. That changes a lot of things because I liked Hill Road a lot. But there's a lot of speed in this race. You're going to see Rodriguez send from the inside rail. You're going to see My Matoli go to the front with blinkers on. You're going to see Sand Devil go to the front. You're going to see Grande go pretty forward. Bear Claw Necklace is scratched, so that changes some things. But as a result, I really like Captain Cook. I think Captain Cook is sitting on a huge race. This horse has done nothing but ever get faster. And much as I used this argument last week with Tapan Street in the Florida Derby, he needs this race to get in the Kentucky Derby. He's not in the starting gate. He won the Withers. He got 10 points for winning. Congratulations. But that and a quarter gets you a phone call home. Doesn't get you anything. So he needs to win or finish second. The fact that Rick Dutrow Jr. has not entered this horse in any other preps, has not entered this horse in any second round preps or tried to find another landing spot for this horse and always said, we're going to the Wood Memorial, really speaks to the confidence that he must have that this horse is sitting on a huge race, because you don't have any backup plan. You don't have any safety net underneath. If this horse runs a bad race, your Derby dreams are over. And there are Derby dreams with this horse. You got the Indian Charlie influence underneath, Mary Lou Whitney stables bred, Manny Franco stays aboard for Dutrow Jr. This one can sit off the pace. I think Rodriguez is going to go straight to the front. I think Captain Cook can tuck in right behind that and sit that ideal pocket trip under Manny. This horse has been training beautifully leading up to this race. I just think there's a lot to like with Captain Cook. The 94 Beyer speed figure in the Withers, guess what? That still holds up. Outside of the California horses, none of these other horses are running huge speed figures. Sandman ran a 95. Pan Street ran a 94, I think. You're right there. So this horse is right there with the top contenders in the Derby and Oaks, or the Derby picture, I should say. I think this one's sitting on a big effort. That's going to be my top pick. Now, in terms of the value play, there is a lot of pace. And I think the three outside horses are all interesting plays. McAfee, Statesman, and Omaha. I think McAfee I have the most questions about, but another horse that has gotten faster every start, could move forward second back from a little bit of a layoff, have to torpedo Anna, though the cloud computing influence up top doesn't overwhelm you. Eric Cancel aboard, doesn't have great speed, is going to be coming from off the pace, but stretching out should be what this horse wants to do. And like I said, we're second back from the layoff. So I get McAfee at 20-1. Wouldn't be a bad price. Omaha, a horse that I'm a huge fan of and has answered a lot of questions with regards to running off Lasix and has just gotten repeatedly faster. 75, 78, 80, 82. Now, he's going to need to take another step forward, but he ran third at a mile and an eighth in the Withers, and he had zero pace to run at. They were going 49 and change, 113 and change, 139 and change to those half, 6 furlong, 8 furlong marks. So didn't have anything to run to, still closed into that pace a little bit, finished third behind Captain Cook and Surfside Moon. Then goes to the Virginia Derby, runs third again in a very unique configuration of a one-turn, 9 furlong race, and was, again, passing horses late to get up for third. So definitely had a little bit of interest there. The horse can close. The horse can pass people. I thought the best effort was in the Jerome at a mile, so maybe a one-turn mile is what he's best at. But I just feel like Omaha, again, 30-1, I think is going to run a lot better than that is going to come running. The horse that's ultimately my value play, though, is the number 11 Statesman, 4-trainer Shug McGahee. This just feels like a Shug McGahee special of a horse that is getting a little bit better at the right time. And horse broke its maiden first time on Lasix, 2 back at Tampa, then comes and wins the $75,000 optional claimer at Tampa, next start out, and now has stepped up here. Shug doesn't step his horses up unless he feels like they're ready for it. Even though this one's owned by West Point Thoroughbreds, there's still Shug's able to kind of run the operation the way he would see fit. 15-1 on this horse, third back in the form cycle after a brief freshening. I just feel like you're going to get the absolute best version of Statesman, who might be sitting a little bit closer than a horse like Omaha, or a couple of other horses who notably have scratched, like a Hill Road. So, yeah, I just think, again, with the scratch of Hill Road, it really changes the complexion of things. I still think there's a fair amount of pace in this race, but give me a horse like Captain Cook who's got the versatility and can sit off as my top pick in this one. Well, let's close it out. Let's bail it out, as we like to say, on the card with a 7 furlong, $45,000 optional claimer for 4-year-old New York fillies and mares. We're going to try to beat Dolomite, who's your even money favorite, 4-trainer Chad Brown. This one, again, burned some money. Favorite last 2 times out, lost both times, though has won as your odds-on favorite 2 times before. So, giveth and taketh away, I suppose. But I third back in the form cycle, I get it. But last time should have been a better effort. Just didn't kind of get the job done. Likes to come from off the pace. Even money horse, going 7 furlongs. I'm just going to try to beat this horse. I know the cutback might be viewed positively by some, but I think he's actually probably best at a mile, though his 2 victories did come at 6 and 7 furlongs. So maybe he needs that a little more pace setup. But based upon the initial speed he showed the last 2 times out, he's not going to be able to sit as close as he did in those 2 victories, where he was a length or 2 at most off the early pace presence. Last couple of times out, he's been 3-4 lengths off the early pace presence. Makes a little bit of a difference, especially as you're stretching out from 6 or 7 furlongs to a mile. So going to try to beat Dolomite and going to use the horse. Well, I'm going to use a couple of horses to do it, I suppose. Going to use number 10, Shohana, for trainer Brad Cox. This one is stepping down in competition, having run against New York Stallion Series races, and has been running very well against them. Finished second last time out. That was back in July, coming back from a long layoff, but Cox is one of the best over the last year, 38% with a $2.02 ROI, with all starters coming back from a 180-plus day layoff. So pretty sizable layoffs there and a lot of success coming off those layoffs for Shohana. 5-1 on the morning line. This is a horse that has good early speed. Again, when this horse can show speed, good things happen. Doesn't need to get the lead, has rated a little bit in the past, though I think is obviously does her best work up front. The question is, the combination of feeling fresh, the combination of her natural speed, her workout pattern would indicate she's going to try to go. The question is, does anybody else go with her, have the early tenacity to go with her? From a value standpoint, fast and frisky. 8-1 for Jorge Abreu with Kyber Koa aboard. There's another one very comparable by her speed figures to what you would expect out of the favorites like Shohana. And I just think presents really nice value. This horse won an allowance 3 back and then stepped up to this level of optional claiming 45 against State Bred Company, and has run pretty well. Has run 2/3, but I thought again ran probably better 2 back than it did last time, but also got a little bit more pace to run at last time. Likes to just track off the pace. I think the outside post position is going to be ideal. Koa should be able to look out to the inside, be able to track who's going to the front in this race, and kind of sit that stalking trip. Going to be able to make a move at the top of the stretch. But I think this one at 8-1 presents some really nice value. And I'd be remiss if I also didn't mention a horse like Nolita at 10-1 for trainer Bill Mott. This one always seems to win when I least expect it. So that's one, again, keep your eye on that horse and keep your eye on how the track is playing, because that one comes from a little further off the pace in recent starts. So if the track is playing fair to closers, that's one to potentially consider at 10-1 as well. All right. Well, folks, we wrapped it up. Look at me being efficient. Look at us getting through an entire card of 13 races in under an hour. Hope you appreciated it. Wishing you the best of luck on Wood Memorial Day. Make sure to check out all of our great content that we have up on NYRA Bets. We have plenty of stuff getting you ready for Keeneland. We got stuff for Santa Anita. We got stuff for Aqueduct, obviously. If you're out at the track on Saturday for Wood Day, come by, say hi. We'd love to see you, and wish you all the best. But like I said, make sure to press that like and subscribe button today. All right, friends. My name is Matthew DeSantis. Wishing you a great and profitable day at the races. And reminding you that it's now post time.